Ever wondered how your muscles grow? Well, when you exercise, you're actually tearing your muscles on a microscopic level. But don't worry, as your body releases protein strands to repair these microscopic tears and strengthen the muscle fibers, leading to muscle growth.
I'm about to blow all of your guys' mind because everything you've ever known about muscle growth is incorrect. Because in order to grow muscle, you need something called mechanical tension. As you can see right here, it's created when your muscles contract to lift a weight, causing your muscle fibers to strain. I'm going to give you 5 things to understand so that when you scroll away from this video, you actually learn something instead of someone lying to you.
To explain how muscles work, because I still see people not understanding how muscles work, and they keep trying to dismiss the idea of micro tears, of just the idea of muscles being, getting torn, as in damage to the muscle, protein building it up, and then that's muscle growth. So I'm gonna explain 2 things that happens to your muscles. So when you start lifting weights, obviously tension, right, which causes stress. So your muscles they go under stress, right? So they're experiencing the weight, right? They're experiencing being pulled. So they're being stretched like a rubber band. So your muscle fibers are being stretched. Your muscle fibers have limits, obviously, right? So eventually they will break. That's micro tears. Those fibers that broke have to be repaired eventually. That's what protein's for. Protein only repairs damage. It doesn't do anything else. Doesn't decide to become a whole new layer of muscle. So it's not like the protein creates a new layer of muscle fibers on top of the muscles you already have. What it does is it repairs the muscle fibers that you already have and makes them stronger. That's the first thing that happens, right? So it does that. Now I'm not saying, so that I'm not misquoted, is that protein doesn't make fibers per se. It's just that it's mainly for repairing fibers. Because you already have the fibers, they just got damaged, so the protein will just repair it, make it simple, right? Just like your body repairs your skin as opposed to making new skin. It just repairs what's already there. Now repair and new and making kind of sounds the same thing. Like you'll think it's the same thing, but it's more of a patchwork thing. But yes, so your muscle fibers will get damaged. The protein will be used to repair it, which will make it stronger. It's the same thing like when your bone breaks, and then when you put the bone back together and it heals, right, it gets stronger. It gets repaired to be stronger. So that way, it's harder to break next time. So that same process of damage plus repair equals stronger is for strength. So micro tears is more for strength than it is for muscle size. However, though, because the fibers are broken in half, that means there's a gap in between the 2 pieces of muscle fiber. The protein gets in between and repairs it, and so it makes it microscopically bigger. So micro tears equal micro repairs, so micro growth. So very little growth. So a lot of people consider it negligible, consider it as not equaling growing. So that's why a lot of people argue that, oh, micro tears don't equal muscle growth. It's like it does. It just has such a small size that, yes, of course you'll discount it, but it still counts though. I'm not gonna discount something that does exist. 1% of anything, even 0.00001% of something, still counts. But a lot of people try to count it as not count it and say 0. It has no effect. It does have an effect. It's just a very small effect. A small effect still counts, especially when you have 1,000, 1,000,000 micro tears. Yeah, that adds up. But anyway, so there's that. So micro tears equals muscle strength more than it would equal muscle growth. However, muscle growth does come from your muscles being stretched out. Because remember, I was saying when you're using your muscles, they're being pulled, right? They're being tension. When you pull something, you're creating tension, right? So when you pull a string, you're creating tension. Same thing with your muscles. When you're lifting weights and you're pulling, you're using your muscles to pull weight, right? To lift, push, pull, right? Especially when you're pulling, right? Like doing curls and stuff, you're creating a lot of tension, which means you're stretching your muscles. That's why they tell you to do stretches before you lift. Isometric exercises is just stretching, right? It's just holding on to tension for long periods of time. And isometric exercises do lead to muscle growth, just like lifting weights equals to growth, which makes you think like, it's not micro tears that equal muscle growth, it's the stretch. Yes, it is. It is the stretch. Because, for example, when I do my chest exercises, I do dumbbell flies until I get a Smith machine. I do dumbbell flies. I'm not focusing on like the lifting up and then lowering it, of course, but lifting up. I'm not using my chest to lift up the weight. I do have to do that part, of course, but that's not the exercise. When I'm doing flies, it's the stretch. It's the lowering the weight to pull, to stretch, to pull my chest back. So I let the weight pull my chest. Then I lift the weight up slowly, not too harshly, because I don't want to stress. Yeah, I don't want to stress the chest with the lifting the weight back up. It's because my focus is on the stretch, so it's the stretch as opposed to contraction. So I'm not trying to contract my chest or flex it as part of the process of growing. I want to stretch it. That's what's going to get to grow. So since I understand that the muscle is going to grow from stretching, especially chest muscle, I focus on that. I focus on the lowering as opposed to lifting. Just like when people bench press, people focus on the lifting part. They're like, oh, the lifting part is the most important part. But for me, it's actually the stretching. It's actually the lowering of the weight. Because most people just let the weight fall down. Obviously controlled, but they'll let it fall down. So they're letting gravity do a lot of the work. And then they try to push because they're pushing against gravity. Right? So they turn bench pressing into more of a pushing exercise, less of a pulling or a lowering down exercise. Me, I try to do it. I do more of a lowering down exercise, so I'm trying to get the stretch. Because that's where you're really gonna build your muscles. Is the stretch. So that's the point I'm trying to make here. Is that from my experience, is that stretching the muscle, or pulling, I should say, pulling the muscle is where the muscle growth really comes in, because the fibers are not broken. They're not. Some of it will break, of course. That's what the protein will come in to repair it and make the muscle fibers tougher. But it's the pulling that makes them longer, or and that's where you get the growth. Because in order for your muscles to be bigger, right, making them longer will be a way of getting them bigger. Plus, when they get filled with glycogen, water, and all that stuff, right, that's where the pump or the size comes in, because they get filled up like a balloon. So just think of like you want a bigger balloon, right? You gotta stretch the balloon so that with the material, the rubber material, stretches out, and then it holds that stretch. AK, that's the growth, is the stretch. So just a simple concept is stretching your muscle is what makes them grow. Damaging your muscle is what makes them strong. That's the only difference. So both things are important. The micro tears and the stretching, or the tension, if you want to use that, or hypertrophy or whatever, that's where the growth comes in. So yes, if you want to make your muscles bigger, the stretch is where you're going to get it from. But if you want to make your muscles stronger, that's where the micro tears come from. So hopefully that clears up the whole micro tears and hypertrophy and all that other stuff of how muscles work. Because like you just saw in the beginning of this video, you know, people are trying to argue what causes muscle growth, when it's a combination of both. Because the micro tears do grow, make your muscles bigger, just very microscopically bigger. So it's not going to be noticeable. It'll take a long time for micro tears to add up to big muscles. The fastest way to get big muscles is to stretch it. Is to stretch the muscles to make them bigger, to literally pull them into a bigger size.